Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Dreams to Keys Realty YouTube channel. I am Jalon Strong, the Essential Millennial Realtor, and your host for this channel. If you're new here, please come in, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm sure there's information we'll talk about on this channel that will be of interest to you or someone you know. And feel free to leave a comment or question in the comment section and also share this content to someone you know who might be interested in real estate, particularly in Georgia. And I cover Georgia's Gwinnett and DeKalb counties. Today, we're going to be talking about the bingo series on step 9 for bingo for future homeowners, the steps to home ownership. So we have covered steps 1 through 8. We've covered a different step for each month. We're now in the 9th month of the year and on the 9th step. So before we get into those steps, we're going to do some just general information to provide to you all for the channel. Like I said, if you're new here, welcome in. And also make sure for everyone that you like the video. It helps us to get into the algorithm, reach those that are interested in this type of content. And also, if you're interested in real estate content in general, especially on the residential side, you definitely want to subscribe and make sure you have, you do have the freedom to post any comments in the comment section or questions you may have. Put them in the comment section. If you have something that you feel that you would like to discuss that's more personal to you or confidential, please go to the link that's moving about at the bottom of the screen, which is beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. There you will see a link that takes you to several tabs. And that tab that says Let's Talk is a tab where you can schedule a consultation with me for up to 1 hour. It is a $15 no-show fee if you do not show for the time you've scheduled. So make sure you pick a time that you're available and that you plan to attend. And during that time, we'll talk about what your concerns are, what your goals are for home ownership. So before we get into today's topic, we're going to talk about the link in the description, which we talked about previously, such as link in description box or link in the bio. We do have several social media pages, and you can find this link, which is the same one that is at the bottom of the screen, on all of our social media pages. From that link, you will see different tabs. And here is the tab that we're highlighting for this week, Rent Reporters. So you have, if you are a homeowner or you're renting, you know that the first of the month is kind of critical for paying your mortgage or your rent. For renters, if you are someone who is looking to be a homeowner and or you're interested in boosting your credit score and having another positive mark on your credit report, using the services of Rent Reporters can definitely help you to do that. What you may not know is that paying your rent on time does not reflect on your credit report or in your credit score automatically. And there are services out there that Rent Reporters provides to help make sure that your on-time rental payments are calculated in your credit score and reported on your credit report. So if that's something that's of interest to you, if you would like a boost in your credit report and score, or if you would just like this to be positively reflected on your credit report, then make sure that you go to the link in the bio. Again, it's moving at the bottom of the screen. It is Rent Reporters as the tab that you would click, and it will take you to their website. We've done this page several times, and from there you can sign up for their services and they will direct you further. So that is how you can get connected to Rent Reporters from the link in the description. Next, we'll talk about the newest link, which we've talked about several times on this page or channel, is Crown First Lady. CrownFirstLady.net is a website that is available to you right now. It is a business venture that I started some time ago now, this year. And it is a way for me to provide the scalp oil that I created for myself to help with my scalp issues. I was having issues with alopecia and scalp irritation. And I talked before about my journey with that and what I decided to do. And In essence, I decided to create a oil for my own scalp that would help ease any irritation and sensitivity I was having as I worked through the alopecia journey to hair growth. And in that, I have family and friends, and they've made connections that have asked for me to provide this to them. And from that birthed the business Crown First Lady. And I walked through why that naming is significant for me. But if you're someone who is interested in trying something new for your scalp, for your journey, whatever your journey is, if you're someone who has struggled with alopecia or has scalp sensitivity and just would like to try something different, this is a product with refined organic oils. It is a blend of essential oils that I crafted myself to put together to create First Lady Scalp Oil, which is available at crownfirstlady.net. We have the travel size or sample size, which is 1 ounce, and we have the full bottle size, which is 4 ounce, that we provide from that website. So if you're interested, please go there and support the business. I will personally make sure that your orders are secured and shipped to you in a timely manner. We typically get out the orders within 1 to 3 days, and I've heard reports of the shipping arriving as soon as 2 days. So please support the business if that's something that you're interested in. All right, we're going to get into why we're here, which is to review the bingo for future homeowners, step 9 of home ownership. So I'm going to add to the page or add to the stage the slideshow. So we typically go through a slideshow for all of these steps, no different here today. So step 9 is receiving the executed contract. At this point, we have already reviewed credit, assessed budget, scheduled a consultation with me, gotten pre-approved, created a wish list, hired me, and I'm on here as the Essential Millennial Realtor, shopped for a home, made an offer, and now we have an accepted offer where you are now receiving an executed contract. So the objectives of this video, this slideshow, is for you to be able to understand and review the process of receiving an executed contract. What does that mean for you as a buyer? And what does that mean overall toward the exchange of property? Also, understanding what due diligence is and the phrase time is of the essence. So let's start with an executed contract. What is an executed contract? Essentially, it is the results of both the buyer and seller agreeing to the terms proposed during. It's very significant to know that an executed contract is one that is signed by both parties. So there's not just agreement, such as someone coming and saying, yes, that's something that we'll agree to. Parties that are agreeing to this contract are signing the contract. And so that is what helps to make it significant and an executed contract. And that is what helps to move the process forward. So we get out of the offer phase into both parties agreeing that they will commit to the terms outlined in that original offer or that last offer, and that turns it into an executed contract. This sets the agreed upon terms into motion. So anything that was in that offer that has now become an executed contract that has been agreed upon by both parties now needs to move toward those steps. So there are certain things that, depending on the contract, obligates the seller to make certain arrangements. For example, if this, let's say for residential property, you have a buyer that is purchasing the property that needs to get inspectors in and may want to see the property again to kind of reassess their desire or their intention in the purchase of the property. Of course, once you get to the executed contract phase, it is expected that both parties are intending to close on this home, that there is an intention to exchange the property. But there also gives room for inspections to take place. And we'll talk about the due diligence period in just a second here. But this gives some time for those things that were agreed upon to be arranged and to take place. One of the most important things I like to point out to my buyer clients is inspections. I recommend that all buyers see the property and get an inspection on the property. And for different types of properties, there can be reasons to have more than one inspection or more than one type of inspection. One such example would be a property that has stucco. Stucco is a specific type of exterior that not all inspectors may be qualified to inspect. So you might need an additional inspection if you have a property that you desire to purchase that has stucco on its exterior. And it's very important, and I would recommend that anyone looking to purchase a residential property with stucco get an inspector who is certified in stucco to review that property, inspect that property, because what you can find with those properties, if that stucco was not done properly, there could be some issues of mold or other areas where there's concern with water not flowing properly when there's rain or other things going on. So it takes someone qualified in the area to make sure that is inspected and they communicate what they're seeing and what the risks are and how to remedy them. So properties can require more than one inspection, and that's why having a real estate agent who is knowledgeable about these types of things and representing you is very important, because a lot of people don't know that. Not just the general inspection, but there are other parts of the property, depending on its makeup and its aspects, that may require additional inspections or quotes. So that should be outlined in the offer and also in the executed contract should you be ready to move on that property in purchasing, if you are the buyer in the case. If you're the seller, of course, the property needs to be available for these inspections or what have you to take place. And so if you're making it harder for the buyer to get those inspections done as agreed upon in the executed contract, there can be some breach of contract issues, which we'll talk about a little bit in an upcoming slide. So it's very important that both sides know what they're agreeing to prior to signing the contract, because once it's signed and presented to the other party, that is enforceable. So it sets everything in motion when the contract is executed or both parties have signed the contract and are knowledgeable about that. And this is the first step in the process of reaching the closing table for both parties. This is the step that lets both parties know we agree. We have found the common ground to where we get what we need on both sides and we're ready to move forward. So it's very important that both sides know what they're agreeing to in the executed contract. When does the earnest money need to be turned in? When is the due diligence period going to end? When are we expected to be at closing? So when are all of the financing and things of that nature due? And there are so many real estate experts that are here to guide in that process. Our lenders are very keen in finding the times and all of those things and outlining and communicating with both sides. So there are real estate experts that are here to help make this process seamless for you, such as myself. And it's just important that we understand that this is a document. It has legal ramifications. It has financial ramifications. And so we need to take it very serious, as we should throughout this whole home ownership journey. But definitely once we get to the point of executed contract, things move faster and they become very time sensitive and critical to keep each deadline and the terms that were agreed upon in the executed contract. What is the due diligence period? So in the contract, in the executed contract, and even in the offer phase, there's a time agreed upon in that document that tells both parties, but it's allowing the buyer to determine, what is needed to, or assess what is needed about this property to make the final decision before buying it. So like I mentioned before, inspections are very important. So the due diligence period allows for the buyer and whomever is needed, such as the inspector, to come into the property and do assessments of the property prior to being bound to the agreement to buy the property. In the due diligence period, the buyer still has the option to say, hey, let's renegotiate, and also to say, this doesn't quite meet what I thought I was looking for or what it initially presented to me as a property that I thought I wanted to purchase for whatever reasons. And they don't have to outline the reasons necessarily, but it gives them a period to say that this is or is not still the property that's best for me for whatever reason. It allows for the inspections to be performed on the property for the buyer to assess possible repairs or risks associated with the property and potential renegotiation of the cost with the seller. So for example, I mentioned before that there are properties that on the exterior have stucco, and that may require or could require an additional inspection. For that, that may show findings in that inspection that there may need to be some repairs for risk, such as mold. And if those repairs are greater than, say, the buyer is anticipating, or that may be more than their lending provides, then the buyer may want to renegotiate those costs with the seller. The seller does not have to agree to those costs. They may say this is as is, and we're not providing, or the seller is not providing any additional costs for these repairs. The buyer could also take the approach of, let's renegotiate the purchase price so that I can afford these additional costs. And again, the seller may not agree to that. And it's best to do these types of negotiations through the due diligence period before the contract becomes an issue of breach of contract. So that's why it's very important that the buyer, buyer's agent, and inspector, or any other parties that the buyer is looking to help make the decision on if this property is still best for the buyer, make sure to do that in the due diligence period, because after that due diligence period ends, the buyer may be in breach of contract if the buyer does not wish to purchase the property after the due diligence period ends. And due diligence period, it cannot be assumed that it is the same period of time from when the executed contract is established to when the buyer and seller reach the closing table. It often and traditionally is not. It's much sooner to the executed contract being established than it can be sometimes to when the parties reach the closing table. So just because the executed contract was established on, let's say, the first of the month, and it's not expected that the parties reach the closing table to the 30th, it does not mean that the buyer has until the 30th to say, hey, I don't necessarily want to buy this home anymore. Typically, there's some time frame, maybe 7, 14 days, depending on what is agreed upon with the parties. It must be agreed upon with both parties in the executed contract to be a sound due diligence period. It's usually somewhere much closer to the executed contract versus the time to the closing table in a traditional sense. Now, if you're someone who, let's say the buyer is an investor, that time to the closing table typically can be shorter than it may be for those who are buying properties to live in themselves. But do not assume that the due diligence period is the total time from the time the executed contract is established until the closing date. It is often much sooner than it takes to get to the closing table. So that's something that definitely needs to be reviewed in the offer phase, and definitely reviewed again when we get the executed contract. So we're staying within the due diligence period should there be any concern or issue with negotiations, repairs, or risk of the property. What does time is of the essence mean? You may have heard this phrase before, and if you've been in any residential real estate transactions, you may have also seen it in your documents. And essentially, it's a phrase that's used to remind parties that, especially when it comes to the contracts, there are deadlines outlined here, and those deadlines are critical. They are not just a farce. They are not just here on paper and of no consequence. They are critical to the execution of the contract. The deadlines can have consequences if they're not upheld or if they're not reached. If deadlines are not met as outlined, a party can be in breach of contract. And there are several different types of breaches, such as material breach, and those are terms that, of course, will lead to our folks in legal realms. But breach of contract can have significant consequences. So that's why it's very important that you, even in the offer phase, know the deadlines that you're proposing or offering and those that you're accepting prior to that executed contract. Once that executed contract is established, not meeting those deadlines can be breach of contract. And some of the consequences that come with that can include termination of the agreement. So that could mean you don't get the property. It also can mean that there's legal disputes. So it can incur more fees or more financial losses when it comes to trying to figure out who's right or wrong and go in the legal route. Also, if you're someone who decides that you want to use multiple real estate agents, unbeknownst to them, then you could be owing commission or compensation to multiple real estate agents. We also just talked about the due diligence phase. If you decide after the due diligence phase has ended that you no longer want the property, you still can be liable for all the aspects of the contract that fall outside of due diligence, which can include the purchasing of the property, because that can be, in some legal phrases, termed as financial losses or damages for the seller. And again, we'll leave all that legal jargon and the process of that to those in those legal realms. But this is the point to say time is of the essence. It's important that you know the deadlines beforehand, you meet the deadlines, you don't take any approach that would put you at risk or the property at risk in not meeting deadlines when it comes to these contracts. And that can have great impact to you if you do have a breach of contract. And these are just some examples. There can be others, but that can include termination of the agreement, some financial losses, and some legal disputes that can add into your financial losses. What are the next steps? So at this point in step 9, you have an executed contract. Review the executed contract. Review it with your real estate agent. Organize inspections on the property. It is up to you to contact the inspector that you desire to inspect the property, and your real estate agent will guide you along the way and advise you, but it's up to you to make the decision ultimately to either take that advice or take another approach upon yourself. Reassess the contract against the inspections for points of renegotiation. Can you afford what may need to be repaired, or do you need to go back to the table with the seller, renegotiate on the terms of that? Are you still interested in the property after seeing the inspection or knowing what repairs are needed? Or is there another approach that you want to take? Is there another price point that you want to review? What things are important to you as a buyer when you're going through reviewing of the inspection? And ask the real questions to the inspector. They are there to be a client of yours, essentially. So ask them questions, ask them their expertise. And they may very well say to you, I inspect, I don't repair, but this is who I think you should go to. Try this type of contractor, try this type of company to see what they would advise you to do. But from the inspector point of view, this is what I would say. So be open to the fact that everyone has their own expertise and they may refer you to someone else who has more expertise in the area that you need services in. But at this phase, think about that. And time is of the essence. So don't delay too long in making decisions at this point, because it can eat into your due diligence period and leave you liable for breach of contract. You want to avoid any breach of contract issues by adhering to all the deadlines in the executed contract, including delivery of earnest money. It's very important that you not only deliver the earnest money, but have receipt of delivery of the earnest money. And because this is a legal process, we definitely want to make sure we have documentation along the way. You should receive receipts for money that you are providing in this transaction, right? So you're not just giving someone earnest money with no receipt. So you don't hand people thousands of dollars and not get a receipt of your earnest money deposit, right? Very well, as when you go to fast food, they're going to ask you if you want a receipt, and you're not paying, in some instances, more than double-digit dollars. When you're giving people thousands of dollars, you need receipt of that. And that needs to be added to the transaction documentation. So make sure that you're adhering to the deadlines, avoiding breach of contract, being proactive. So you can already, prior to getting to the executed contract phase, you can already be thinking of who you want your inspector to be. And if you know that you're very well interested in a property that might need an additional inspection, like I mentioned before, with the stucco inspections, then you can have someone already prepared. And that way, when you make the offer, you have an inspector in mind who, should that offer be accepted, is ready to go and is knowledgeable about, what you're looking for. If you're someone that is interested in buying a property this year or within the next 12 months, you definitely want to go to the link moving about in the description. Moving about at the bottom of the page, which is also in the description, as well as the link that's here on this slide. Either one will take you to our consultation page. If you go to the link that's moving about at the bottom of the screen or in the description box, it's beacons.ai/Jalon Strong. You can click the tab that says Let's Talk, and it'll take you to this very link that's here on the slide. And from there, you can schedule a consultation with me. We can talk one-on-one at a time you choose. And if you do not attend, though, it will incur a $15 no-show fee. So make sure that you're scheduling a time that you're available to talk with me for up to 1 hour about your home ownership journey. I represent clients in Gwinnett and DeKalb counties of Georgia. So if you're interested in either one of those counties, I'm definitely willing and able to help you in your residential real estate transaction. If you're someone who's looking for a referral, let's say you don't want to purchase a property or sell a property in either one of those counties, but you do need a real estate agent and you're not sure of one that will be best for you, I have a nationwide network, so I can help to assist you find the real estate agent that is best for you. You can text the word referral to 770-758-5641. We'll contact you, get the referral process started with you. It will include that you review with us and with myself, and particularly the documentation that gives us permission to find a residential real estate agent for the services that you're looking for. Once you give us that permission in writing, then we will go within 24 to 48 hours to find a real estate agent that is available and willing to assist for the services that you need in the location that you need. And then we'll connect the both of you so that you two can go forth and find the property or sell the property that you have. For everyone, please like the video. It really does help us get into the algorithm for those who are interested in this type of content. Please subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. Follow us on our other social media platforms. We are on several platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, of course, here on YouTube, also on Blue Sky and Substack. Please leave a comment or question in the comment section. Share our content from our social media platforms to those that you would like to see it, those who are interested in it, or those that just may run across your profile. So I'm going to stop sharing. Going to see if you have any questions, if you have any comments. If you don't right now and you want to put them in at a later time, feel free to do so. The comment section is available even on the replay, and I will respond to any questions or comments you have as I see them. Thank you all for joining me once again for another step in our series for Bingo to Home Ownership, the Bingo for Future Homeowners. We covered step 9 today, which is receiving the executed contract. We've already covered 8 steps previous to this. We have 3 more steps and we will be done with this series. And we're going to move on to a more exciting topic, for me at least, with how we approach our homes in a more green way. So many of you know that I have a new certification in green designation. So I'm interested in next series talking about making our homes more energy efficient and green. So we will definitely start that into the next year, but we have to finish this series first. If you are someone who wants to know more about that, wants to keep in touch and be aware when we get that series started, you definitely have to be a subscriber and click all on the notification bell so that you don't miss any content that we post or anytime we go live. I hope you all have a great day. I'm going to get out, enjoy the sun, get some exercise. I hope you do too. And I hope that you're able to support crownfirstlady.net at your leisure. And I look forward to assisting with any orders that you have for your scalp oil. I really appreciate all of you who have already made purchases and have given reviews. I'm looking at them and I appreciate them. And I just love how something that I started to just kind of work through my own healing journey has helped others heal as well. So I thank you all for the support on both businesses, both platforms, as far as Crown First Lady and Dreams to Keys Realty. And I thank you for the support thus far, and I look forward to the future. If nothing else, I'm going to end the live. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and weekend.